Okay, so now getting into the fifth Aliyah, chapter 24, verse 53. Verse 53. Vayotze ha'eved kalei chesef u'chalei zahav u'vegadim vayiten v'rivka. Then the servant brought out, this is yatsa, in case you're having trouble recognizing it, that's a yod that became a waw, okay? As oftentimes happens with pei yod verbs, the yod goes to a w sound back then. So this is hifil, so he caused to come out. He brought out, the servant brought out vessels of silver and vessels of gold and garments, and he gave them to Rivka. Umigdanot natan le'achecha ule'ima. And this word is kind of a weird word for gifts. He gave to her brother and to her mother. This word, Rashi says, it specifically means like fruits, special fruits, right? So probably fruits that were indigenous to Israel that he knew they wouldn't have there. If you ever travel to another country and they have some kind of food or fruits that you don't have in your own land, it's very interesting. When I was doing Philippines, I was always taking photographs of the weird fruits that were in the supermarket, like durian, what is this weird thing with spikes all over it, or rambutan, or star fruit, or just these exotic, bizarre fruits that are commonplace in the grocery store, but like lychee, what are these weird things? Hairy fruits and weird Giovanno, right? Giovanno, it was so interesting to me. I felt like I'm visiting another planet, right? So it kind of makes sense that they would send special fruits like that. But it also can make the sages also say that this was part of the reason they wanted to delay. She got silver and gold and all this good stuff, and they got fruits. So they're thinking, let's delay a bit longer. Maybe we get some more goodies for ourselves. All right. Verse 44. Oh, actually, I want to mention, that the sage that I was talking about this is Abarbanel. He's the one who says that they were upset that they got nothing but fruit. They were hoping to get some gold or silver, some better loot out of the servant, out of Abraham's servant. 44. So they ate and they drank, he and the men who were with him. So the servants, the 10 men who accompanied for the betrothal service. And they lodged. They stayed the night. Then they arose in the morning, and he said, "Send me to my master." Verse 55. Vayomer achiha ve'ima teshev hana'ara itano yamim o asor. So they said, his sister and his mother said, "Let the lass stay." This is like shuv, like return, stay. Let her stay. Sorry, it's not from shuv, it's from yashav. The yod disappeared, so it confused me also. It's from yashav, not from shuv. Both of those, the thing, this is supposed to be a yod that I drew there. Yod, shin, beit is the word, to sit or to dwell. So let the lass dwell with us, yamim o asor. So literally it says days or 10. But you have to understand, in Torah Hebrew, yamim can also mean years, right? Like the fullness of yamim, you can say, right? So the days of the years of Abraham were such and such, right? So they could be saying 10 months here even, right? Hinting about 10 months, but being polite and suggesting something smaller, and later it grows, right? And as it is customary for even 12 months for the virgin bride to have to prepare to be with her husband, it could be, right, that's what they're asking. Achar telech, afterwards she will go. Ibn Ezra comments that, look, it's only her brother and her mother speaking. He says the reason that the father was silent, it might be that the son was wiser and more well-known than the father. He's certainly mentioned even before his father in the text. So maybe the father's like a nobody, but the son already has some wisdom. He's a good businessman, as we see later on, right? At least a good swindler. Verse 56. Vayomer aleihem, but he said to them, Al tacharu oti, v'adonai hatzliach daki. So he says to them, do not delay. This is like, you see the word tarry sometimes in King James stuff. Achar. The verb acher, pardon me, acher, is related to achar, like afterwards. We get after, but like up here, achar, after, or acharei ha'davarim ha'eli, after these things. The verb is to delay, right? To make it after. Do not delay oti me. And this vav, I don't think it's right to translate as and. I think this is vav emphaticum, so it's like a little exclamation point in the middle of the sentence. So it's something like, Adonai has made successful my path. He raises his tone here, right? He's like, it's already made successful. Don't delay now. Come on, I'm about to get a home run here. Shalachuni, send me out. Elecha, and here, this hey at the end, another exclamation point. So he's really speaking emphatically here. The verbal form is called the cohortative. And let me go, ladoni, to my master. The Rashbam comments that the Holy One wants no delay. That would be the lesson of the success, right? That would lessen the success. So it would make it even less. He wants no delay. Verse 57. Vayomu nikra lana'ara v'nisha'ala et piha. So they said, we will call the lass, and let us ask. So now they're being a bit emphatic here with their hey. This is an explanation point. Let us ask from her mouth, literally, right? So she's going to be the one to say. And from this, actually, the Talmud goes on to comment. I think it's in Masachet Ketubim, right? It must be Ketubim. It says that it's that a woman should not be forced to marry someone she doesn't want to marry, right? So contrary to Fiddler on the Roof or whatever stuff you see, it always was understood, even though you had arranged marriages, that if the woman was against the wedding, she should not be forced. That's not a good thing for a parent to do, to force her to marry someone he doesn't want to marry. Sorry. Verse 58. Oh, hold on. Esau says something here. He says, in Aramaic, it says, man, it's hard for me to see those fonts. Eden na'idan, instead of yamin, meaning a period of time, and then az asara yachim. Oh, it literally says, or 10 months. Ah, okay, nice. Is that an onkelos? So onkelos is indeed interpreted in months, like I was saying. Nice. Yeah, yerachim, right. The Aramaic ending of noon there. Thanks for that. Very interesting. So there's some confirmation. Very interesting. So the Aramaic does interpret it that way, that we are saying that they're really hinting about months. So they summoned Rivka and they said to her, so this hey here, with the chata patach, that's a hey interrogative, it's a question mark, right? So it's a little, like in Espanol, you get the upside down question mark. I don't know if they do this in Chibacano or not. Okay. So will you go im ha'ish hazeh, with this man, the man of this one, that's how Hebrew talks. Vatomer elech, and she said, I will go. 59. Vaishadachu et Rivka achotam be'et meniktah. So they sent Rivka, achotam, their sister, and also her nurse, right? So like her yaya went with her too. Be'et Eved Avraham, and the servant of Avraham, Be'et Anashav, and his men. They sent them all out. Like, so they stood at the door as they're going off, or they would walk a mile with them at the end. This was customary back then, which is kind of where when Yeshua says, if someone asks for you to go a mile, go 2, right? So it's customary to see off a guest this way in the ancient world. And Kimchi comments on this. Why is it Rebecca and her nurse, along with Abraham's servant and his men? He says that Rebecca's maids, only the nurses mentioned, right? That she was the most important of all of them. All these were deserving of the send-off, and that is, they're the ones who are described here. So even her wet nurse was a tzedekah, basically. So she gets mentioned. There were other servants who went with her as well, right? They were not poor, but that the wet nurse is the one that we hear about. Okay. Verse 60, Samech. Esau says it's interesting, the psychology of the girl. She's so young, but too excited to leave her home. I wonder why. Maybe there was truly idolatry happening there, right? And maybe she's had dreams from Hashem, right? And all these sorts of things. And so she's ready to go. And here, it's like, it could be that her prayer was answered as well. She's praying, get me out of here. I want to be righteous. I want to be with you, Lord. You know, because it's very hard for anybody who's grown up in a household where the parents are leftists or they're all into Eastern stuff, or there's Buddha statues or things like this. It's very hard to be a child in that situation if you have found Hashem, because the child is trying to be righteous, but also there's constant conflict with the other family members, right? Because they do not follow Hashem. And don't make a mistake, Rabbatai, to take from this that it's okay to marry off onto unbelievers. In Avram's days, there just wasn't much choice, right? There weren't many people that believed, so he's kind of got a specific situation there. Esau says, is it also possible that Lavan was hard on her? His character later seemed quite intense. Yeah, I think so. Very possible. We see he's a hard character. He's always manipulating people and ripping them off. And he changes, the deal, right? All these sorts of things, like he does later, even to Yaakov. He changes the deal, right? Even in his old age, he doesn't improve. And he still has idols. Absolutely. Wicked people are not usually the most gentle. It's funny, even if you see someone who's kind to animals, if they're a wicked person, if they're a leftist, those same people who cry when a kitty cat dies on the street, they proclaim abortion openly and the right to murder human babies. So there's like twisted pervertedness. You can't just look at one attribute and think, oh, okay, they've got a good heart. No, they don't have a good heart. All right, verse 60. So they blessed Rivka and they said to her, Achotenu at Chayei le'alfei revava. You are our sister. May it be for thousands and myriads, right? V'yirash zarech, that your offspring shall inherit. This is from yarash, the verb yarash. It can mean dispossessed too. Et sha'ar sonav, may they inherit the gates of those who hate, her haters, her enemies, right? Literally is what it means. Which is interesting here because this phrase, like thousands of myriads, is really kind of what it means. Where were we? Alfei revava, right? This is a construct form here, like thousands of myriads, literally, it says there. Revava is 10,000, and Elef is 1,000, right? And so thousands of myriads. Why is this number mentioned? Well, Kimchi says that this is the largest number in biblical Hebrew. There isn't a number higher than this, right? People didn't have a word for 100,000 or 200,000. I mean, you can form it, right? But as far as distinct words being used where it represents something, there wasn't a word for a million, for example, back then. And Abarbanel in the Mikvot Gadol, he comments about this phrase here that we have at the end. May zarech, yirash zarech et sha'ar sana'av. He noticed that this is the exact same phrase that is mentioned in Genesis 22, verse 17, where it says, Kivarech Avraham v'harba arbe et zaracha kechochavei hashamayim, and he blessed, and I will indeed bless you and make numerous. We even have harbe, right, which is where vavar comes from, like making the myriads, your zaracha, your zara, your offspring, like the kochavei hashamayim, the stars of the sky. And kechol asher, and like the sand asher af sefat hayam, which is on the seashore. Vayirash zaracha et sha'ar oivaiv, and your seed, your offspring, will possess or dispossess the gates of, and it's a synonym, oivav, its enemy. Instead of here we have sonav, which also means enemy. So it's very interesting. So it seems like even in this moment they are being possessed by, or at least hinted at by Ruach HaKodesh, how to give the right blessing. ותקם רבקה ונערותיה ותרכבנה על הגמלים ותלכנה אחרי האיש. So then Rivka rose, and her lasses, and so like her maidens, right? And she mounted the camel. They mounted the camels, and they went. This is from Halach. The hay is missing here, or Ibn Ezra would say it's from Yalach, Yod. Either one, they mean the same thing. After the man. Vayikad ha'eved et Rivka vayilach. Yikach, pardon me, not Yikad, Yikach. This is Lakach, the Lamed hides. And the servant took Rivka and he went. Okay? And then we have verse Samech Shtayim, so 22. V'yitzchak ba mibo be'er lachai roi. And Yitzchak was returning from going to Be'er Lachi. The text is making clear that he doesn't live there, but he was going there maybe to pray or something. V'hu Yosheb Be'eretz HaNegev, but he lived in the land of the Negev. That's the southern part of Israel. Excuse me, one moment. Janine says, and may your descendants possess the cities of those who hate them. Verse 60, wonder how this is taken by non-Israelites in the Middle East or elsewhere. Yeah, if they read it now. Not good, surely, not good. Probably that we corrupted the text, right? Like the Quran, the Muslims, they accuse us of corrupting the text, right? So while they say the Bible is the good book, it later then says that Jews and Christians corrupted the Bible, that we changed the words, right? So even if they're lying to you and saying, no, like it's okay in their religion to lie for the sake of Islam, they'll lie and they'll say, no, yeah, the Bible's good, but the Quran is like part 3. It's like the Mormons do with the Book of Mormon, right? Yeah, the Bible's good, but the Book of Mormon is part 3, right? So it's just extended. But really, it's a ploy to wedge you from the Bible and to get into Quran instead. Okay, so where are we now? So in the Targum, Onkelos actually thinks that Be'er Lahai Ro'i, that it's the same place as Beersheba, that they're located in the same place. If that's the case, then when Abraham planted a tamras there, and he invoked the name of Hashem, it's certainly a worthy place for prayer, because we have both the miracle happening for Hagar and also Hashem reaching out to Abraham there, right? And so from this we can learn that if there's a place where Hashem interacted with you in your life, if there's a specific location where he really spoke to you or to a family member of yours or something, that place might be a good place to go to pray from time to time. And we see that's what Yitzchak was doing. He's returning from going there to pray. And Chizkuni comments that it's more on the outskirts of the city, but that's actually where the location is. Okay, 62, 63. Vayetzi Yitzchak lasuach basadeh lifnot arev. And Yitzchak came out from meditating, like musing, like thinking. It's kind of a rare word, you don't see this too often, in the field at the turning of the evening, meaning that the sun is about to go down. Vayisayinai, and he lifted up his eyes, v'yara, the verb is ra'ah, if you're missing it, for those of you who are learning Hebrew words. Resh, aleph, hey is the verb. It's a lamed hey verb, which means in the last position, the hey falls away, right? If you hear me saying lamed hey, pei nun, if you don't remember, I'm referring to pa'al. This is the traditional dikduq, traditional grammar way to refer. Every verb has 3 root letters. And pa'al just means verb, right? It's from the word pa'al, to do, right? It's a synonym to asa. So this first position, we call this the pei position, because that's a pei. The second position of a verb is the ayin position, and the third is the lamed, right? So when I say lamed hey, it means that in the lamed position, there's a hey, you see? If I say pei nun, that means there's a nun in the first position, the first root, okay? Like natan, to give, is a pei nun verb, okay? So if you hear me saying that, that's what's happening. So I think more modern grammars, they might call this the stem, or put in the root in the first, second, third position, but that's not our tradition. We say lamed hey, pei nun, ayin vav, or hollow verb, etc. So when he looked, and behold, gemalim ba'im, camels were coming. Woohoo! Camels are coming. Rashi interprets this l'suach to mean that he was meditating. He went out to meditate, right? And we actually see the same word being used in Psalm 102, verse 1, where it says, Tefillah le'oni chiya atof v'lifnei Adonai yishpoch sicho. It is the prayer of a poor man that he wraps around himself, and before Adonai, he pours out his siach, his musing, his meditation, right? His contemplation, rather. Ibn Ezra just says he was bushwhacking. He's hitting bushes, just kind of fiddling around or whatever. The other sages like Nachmanides and stuff, they talk about how he was going out and actually meeting with like-minded people, right? Other believers, so to speak, and they would have discussions. And then afterwards he was musing about it, thinking about it. Verse Samech Dalet, 64. Vatisaha Rivka et eneha Vaterei et Yitzchak. This is nasa. It's hard to recognize the verb because the nun assimilated into the scene. That's why there's a dot in the scene. It's saying, hey, there's a nun hiding in here. Nasa, you should know. It's like NASA, takes things up to carry up. So, and Rivka lifted up et eineha, her ein, her einayim, her eyes. Vaterei, and she saw. So again, lamed hey, the hay disappeared. That's a terrible hay. My finger slipped. So it's, and she saw Yitzchak. Vatipo me'al hagamal. This is nafal, the noon. It's a pei noon. The noon disappeared. It's hiding in there. And she fell from on top of the camel. That's literally what the text says. Whoa, whoa. Seems kind of comical, right? So Targum Onkelos clears this up. In the Aramaic, it says she lowered herself towards the ground. That is, she slipped down, right? And the Rashbam says it's for modesty's sake, right? That she shouldn't be seen riding side saddle, right? Or riding like a man with one leg on each side. And so she actually, in Talmud Bava Pesach, page 3, tells us that camels are scary because they're so tall, right? So that even women had to ride them like a man would so they wouldn't fall off, right? So it's explaining her modesty. Ibn Ezra comments that when she came off the camel, that it says fell, but it means deliberately, like when one falls on one's face, right? They're not actually, ow, smacking their face in the ground, right? They're deliberately controlling their actions, right? So even though the text sounds a bit funny there in the biblical Hebrew, there's some deliberate actions that are happening there. Verse 65, Vatomer el ha'eved, and she said to the servant, Mi ha'ish halazeh ha'holech? Who is this man? Again, she's using her weird word for this. Who is this man who is walking basadeh in the field, likhatenu, to meet us? Vayomer ha'eved hu adoni, and the servant said, he is my master. It's interesting, this word to meet us, it can also mean to call to us. So you can have this idea, he's waving his arms, hey, hey, camels over here. So that's also a possible way to translate that. Like he's excited. Right. Okay. Continuing on, Vatikach Hatzaif Vatitkas. And here we see really what a modest woman she was. So this is Lakach, in case you had trouble recognizing the word. The Dagesh in there tells us it's a lamed hiding. And she took a tzaif, like a long mantle, like a long scarf thing. Vatitkas, so this is kasa, lamed hay, the hay disappears. And Tit tells us it's hitpa'el, she does it to herself. She covered up herself. In the Masorah, it mentions, when she says this unusual word, halazeh, it only occurs again in 37:19 in the Torah, where it says, Vayimru ish el achiv, that a man said to his brother, Hinei, behold, Ba'al hachalomot halazeh, this is this master of dreams, coming to us, right? So it's interesting that they actually end up having the same, the Masorah says that's where you see halazeh the next time in the Torah, and then no more. And so probably, I need to look and see, but probably it's her children, right? Because they picked up the speech patterns of their mother, right? So it's just amazing, the intricate accuracies linguistically that the Torah has when you look at what's happening in the language. Just so nice. Janine says, to romantics, this is a nice love story. Sure. Yep, it is romantic. It's nice. I agree. Okay, 66. Vasaper ha'eved leYitzchak et kol ha'davarim asher asa. Then the servant related, he told to Yitzchak all the things which happened. 67. Vayvieha Yitzchak ha'ohela Sarah imo vayikach et Rivka vatehi lo leisha. Vayehaveha vayinachem Yitzchak acharei imo. Yitzchak, then he took her towards the tent, like to the tent of Sarah his mother, and he and he took Rivka, and she became, is what this means, for him, as a woman, right? So a wife. We don't have a word for wife in Hebrew, so it's context. Vayehaveha. This is the word that I mentioned, only occurs twice in Tanakh in this particular form. Yehaveha. The other is with David HaMelech. Vayinachem Yitzhak, and Yitzhak was comforted, like we have Noach is from this word, right? Noach, he was comforted acharei imo, after his mother, meaning after the death of his mother.